even those who, but failing CI. Actually, we have so many pull requests that get stale, get abandoned, whatever, that we have in the queue right now. It's because the authors submitted something, they didn't get their emails right, and it's the compliance check is failing, and people are asking them to go fix them. Probably they have no idea how to fix their Git identity, and they get stuck and stay stuck for such a long time. And people ask them, can you rebase, or can you change your email, blah, blah, blah. And things never happen, and then they just move away. So there are like different classes where we need to have a way to keep track of those and ask ourselves why. Yeah, but having said that, and thanks to Keith.
Yeah, I was going to call out.
Yeah, go ahead, Keith. You can talk about that. Yeah.
There is an escalation process for PRs if they get stalled. So we do have that written down and documented. One part of that is the dev review meeting that happens on Thursdays. It's led by a Marine. Does some triage and tries to look for things that have been neglected or got ignored. But there's a documented process, ping on the PR, ping on Discord, that sort of thing. So do check that out. It's not a perfect process. If you have suggestions for improvements, please reach out to us.
One more thing related to this, one thing that I do see as possible and that may be helpful is calling out, for example, every TSC, we could do something like gather statistics on reviews that have not been looked at by the maintainer, and basically going out, this maintainer has this many outstanding reviews, that may help, things like that. Or even taking it to the extreme, if you have more than 100 pending reviews, your maintainership suspend. I'm going too far probably there, but you see my point. I think that could work instead of merging, auto-merging, or merging to another branch, right? That's the direction I would go in.
So I think there's another class of PRs, at least that I personally struggle with as a maintainer, is that when you have somebody who's new to open source and contributes a very large driver, it's a large burden to review it, and it's kind of hard to give somebody feedback on that when there's 1,000 things that need to change. And like how do we get them to kind of scope things down to the point that it is not such a huge burden on maintainers to review and come back and review, because there's often multiple iterations, and the larger the pull request is, the more iterations it tends to take, especially with new contributors. And it's something that I see a lot with, and I struggle to keep up with them because there's just so many.
So I have a comment. I had a question. Maybe we can add to like the contribution guideline. What can be like the expectation, like when you're doing a PR, I know there is what should be like the minimum amount of time, but what is expected amount of time that your PR can sit in a review? I'm just telling this because today I got like a message from my colleagues, and they were like asking, how can we do something to speed up the PR, and they were showing like several of their commits, and they were asking, oh, maybe if we join it as a contributor or something. But I look at the PRs, and they were like, it took only a week from the point when it was posted. There was like several discussions going on and forth, like with the comments, answering to the comments, like fixing the comments, and then only one day from after the last comment was fixed to the point where it was merged. So it was like everything took like a week, and they were asking like, oh, can we do faster? How can we speed it up? And I was like, I don't know how to respond. I think it looks perfectly fine with it. So maybe
I think because I know the conversation in this case, it would fall onto us to set the expectations correctly to our colleagues who are used to another pace of development because they develop, private internal source code.
Zephyr is not a product. If you want to get things accelerated, create a fork and do everything you want.
We have it.
I know this.
So I guess we kind of responded to that and explained it. I was just wondering, maybe in a documentation like contribution guideline, give you like what is expected. Like if it takes a week, it's kind of normal that it can take
exactly.
a week.
I think that still makes sense to set timelines very approximate, but say maybe after a week start complaining, but not after 20 minutes. That I think would make sense.
Well, and I'll say that Daniel knows, we're internal in our company. We've got a lot of new people coming on board, and they're used to a process internally where they post a PR, and I'm not even sure some of them get reviewed. They just get merged and they let testing test. But I think externally, you also get folks coming in that may be coming from a same kind of environment, a corporate environment or something like that. And in an open source project, again, a lot of the maintainers, a lot of the collaborators, those people that are going to be reviewing it also have day jobs. And so you have to let that process work through.
Well, but you can also push. I mean, I was going to...
No, there's nothing wrong with pushing.
Right.
Nudging, as I would call it, nudge.
Exactly.
But you still have to, as long as there's conversation going on, unless the conversation is just going nowhere, and if you can figure that out, then address it, but, yeah.
Yeah, and just to sort of interject, because this is not a process thing, so I'm totally expert to talk about it. You know, those of us who have been around here a long time just get a ton of review requests. I mean, it's a non-ending flood, and most of them, I mean, the bulk of them are like in drivers and our subsystems I don't care about, and I know there are other experts, I can ignore them. But the problem is, if I get busy and I ignore my, you know, it's all filtered into a separate folder, right? But if I ignore my GitHub email for 3 or 4 days, there's now, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 messages in there. I'm never going to get to whatever was missed. It's just not going to happen. So scream, yell on Discord, if you at me on GitHub, again, it's going to go into the giant queue. It might get lost. Yeah. But just make sure that I see it, and I'll come and review it, right? I mean, but and I think that's true for everybody. I mean, you can do this informally.
That's key, I think. Yeah, Discord versus GitHub notifications.
Discord, GitHub, I think that goes back like somebody like Andy, somebody like me, Kumar probably, and a few others. You getting a lot of notifications, you are probably you know, assigned to many areas and so on. Yeah, that's where actually the one problem that we have is the granularity of the areas. I mean, that's why, for example, something that we discussed for things like, you know, like the device tree or device model or like key areas. We need to have multiple monitors and have a round robin type of thing. We did that for the kernel, so it's now Andy and Peter, right? And we did that for other areas as well, yeah? So, and probably we need to do that more. So there is some load balancing somehow. So it's not, and also keeping people honest, yeah, in terms of like, you know, me as a maintainer submitting something, probably somebody else needs to, you know, be assigned to it and approve it. Just going back to what was said earlier by Machi and the whole Zephyr is not a product, that's exactly why we introduced the 4I principle, because this actually avoids that, yeah? I know exactly how it feels, yeah, and probably everybody here getting like the nudge, can you merge it? Yeah, can you merge it? No, I can't merge it. It has to be approved by somebody else. And I tell that people straight away. Yeah. If you want it now, if you want it today, just, you know, cherry pick the change and put it in your tree. Yeah. It doesn't work otherwise. And that actually works really great. Yeah. Because this keeps everyone honest in terms of like the personal preferences and collegial, you know, you're sitting in a room, somebody submits, 2 minutes later, you have 2 approvals, and 3 minutes later, it's merged. That's gone. That's not going to happen anymore. Hopefully, yeah. There are always exceptions, and we can deal with that. That's why David, when he has something and so on, it's already reviewed, etc. He asks me, and I ask him exactly the same way. Go take a look at that. And merge it if you see it's correct. I don't merge it myself. Yeah, and that's, in my opinion, that is working really great. And I see that from, actually, very interesting, because I saw a PR by Nordic. No. Wait a second. Yeah, wait a second. Which was, it was reviewed only by Nordic, and it was merged by Carlos. And I know Carlos sometimes, you know, over coffee, I don't know what he's doing. So things get missed. I miss things as well. But the nice thing that I saw is the submitter or somebody, what's his name, Tali, yeah? He actually commented, said, Carlos, you were too fast. This was approved only by.
I know which one you mean.
I appreciate that, yeah. And this is really great because we understand. You know, it's a process. I understood immediately that was not like intentional or anything. Things happen, right? So that's really how it's working really well. Sorry, that was a long monologue. Yeah. Go ahead.
One thought in this space is and we're doing it now, but I think it's also maybe a tech talk or something about what it's like to be a maintainer, right? In the sense of the burden that is there, my queue backs up if I don't look at stuff for 4 days, right? Or whatever, and just that sense of like, hey, there were, like early on when I started contributing to open source, I remember we were working on U-Boot and at the company I was at, and we had a really hard time getting code accepted, and we didn't understand why or what was going on. And after a while, we realized that, and this goes to kind of Anas's, what he had in his presentation about where we have, a significant number of contributions that are by people who are only contributing, 5 or 10 PRs or something or lower. And the thing in that project became clear was the maintainer's like, look, I've got to maintain this code well after you go away, right? The reason that his bar was so high for those small cases was, look, you're going to go back to your day job, you go back to building your product, whatever. I've got to still keep this code going and living and maintaining and dealing with it. And so, and the bar dropped as well, because once he realized, hey, you're actually going to be here as part of this community, you're not just that person that's going to, and I've been, I have projects where I've contributed 1 or 2 patches to something to fix something and go back to whatever I was doing. So there's cases on being on both sides of that, but that kind of sense of saying, hey, if I know Carlos submits something and I look at it and it's like it's not perfect, I know if I go back to him in a week or something, he's there because he's engaged, he's there, he's part of the community, that, right? Versus somebody that you kind of just don't know who they are, and maybe it's 1 or 2, and it's like, so I think there's some things there on just kind of being able to express for people to understand why these, why is it that we're not merging things and you're used to your company environment where things go in and so forth, right? Why we're able to say the quality of this open source project is what it is because we do these things, right? So.
One of the talks that Greg Crow-Hartman gave a while back at, I think it was at Lenaro, was, help me not to reject your patch. Yeah, exactly. And I think maybe us doing a variant of that for Zephyr and helping educate everyone as to, okay.
Again, like I'm going to repeat that internally we have a lot of new developers. I mean, they're not new to developing, they're obviously very experienced, but they're new to Zephyr. And I'll tell you, I'm like a repeating broken record when I talk about, they'll say, hey, help me with my PR, this is not, and I go and look, CI's failing. I said, guys, you're not going to get anyone's paying attention to it because they're busy. Make sure it's clean first. So, yeah, it's a constant educational thing. We have it internally, obviously, and we have a number of developers. I'm sure, when Nordic brings on new folks or new teams, you've had the same kind of challenges. So, and it's true from the community perspective too.
Perhaps an idea could be to start with a tips and tricks page and a documentation for how do I get my PR merged. So we have all these escalation paths documented as it is today, and they could develop committer expectations and whatnot. But some of these stuff, as you say, it's when we're pinged on Discord, it's literally many of the but CI is failing, or this one wasn't approved by the ISNE or whatever.
Looking at Benjamin right now.
Yeah, I am too.
Instead of tips and
could
tricks,
be
how
like a
about
TikTok talk, yeah.
But how about,
I'll be happy to host, and tell people how, to get their BR moving.
Yeah, I did. But instead of tips and tricks, we've been talking about an FAQ forever, and that FAQ could be technical and also regarding contribution. So FAQ, page with FAQ, and you redirect them with FAQ, and you can link this section links, right? And that would work, in my opinion, very well. So I'm gonna end up.
And by the way, when it comes to CI, it's going to be even more difficult as we move forward. I mean, there are so many ideas to do things, Some people are actually even considering involving AI. Yeah, I mean, you yeah. No, so but on a serious note, CI is our best friend, yeah, because without CI, at least when it's working correctly, you have to go through every single line of code, etc. And first, I have to verify, obviously, that it builds, right? That it follows like a certain style. In the future, we will have, coding guidelines enabled. Yeah, so we are consistent in how we write code and how, and documentation has to build, etc., etc. So if I have to do it manually as a maintainer, that's like another hour per PR that I have to, depending on the PR side, right? So CI is our best friend. And however, as I was saying earlier, a lot of the PRs that we have are stuck on the Git identity and not using the same Git or whatever, or using GitHub to submit a PR, which has like just stupid GitHub no reply, stuff. And we need, I don't know how to fix this, but and I mentioned that on some other forum, maybe our documentation is probably not addressing that, yeah? Maybe we should, when something like this happens, post like a comment in the PR, that's how you fix it. Right now it's like so hidden that people just ignore it.
I have to say, this with Benjamin's changes where you have this comment for the first PR, that mentions specifically, that links specifically the commit format.
Yeah.
I think those that are too lazy, well, let's not say lazy, but that they don't persevere.
Yeah.
Those that don't persevere across beyond the first error message, I think they have not looked at what the GitHub page shows them, because it's not buried. It's right there. That's if it's the first PR, but I assume in the second one they've gotten the commit format right. So I think another, or the bot, I think yet another message, hey, this is a common occurrence, blah, 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 this is how you do Git author, Git commit amend author, and so on. Sure, but I have to say that this works wonders already.
Yeah, I completely agree. But there are like some Git hackery or some Git like details that not everybody is able to do that if they are using Git for the first time. Like changing your author or whatever. You really have to, anyways. But
although it is explained in the...
Yeah, but just frankly, given the size of the community and the number of new potential contributors, those folks who don't follow up when we ask them to change their email, there's maybe nothing to do about it. Like they moved on. They're not interested. And the PR, we just let it be closed by the bot.
We just close the BR in this case. Yeah,
and that's what we do.
Because
like the bot eventually closes it.
Because the problem is, and that's really what drives some people crazy, is that some of these PR, somebody submits an issue. Sometimes it's a typo, There's an issue about that. They open a PR, so we have to triage it and spend time on it in our meetings. Then there's a PR about that, that is somebody has to go and look through it, and it's stuck. The issue is stuck. We can't fix it because the PR is stuck, because we are expecting this person to do it, but this person has moved on. So we need to figure out how, if somebody doesn't respond, just override the PR or submit another PR, close it.
Time bound it in.
And
there's a limit in time, and then after that, that's it.
And we are timing out here, so as well, because we are over time, actually, And but if there are a few last questions, let's close on that. And
yeah, you said something about contributors you can add yourself. So, for example, if I'm interested in reviewing and, I don't know, maybe fixing some of the drivers from another company, like Intel, we are working together at Sound Open Firmware, and I'm interested in their PRs regarding DMA, for example, or DI interface. I'm not notified by those PRs. How can I be notified? Because, okay, I receive a lot of emails, I cannot follow them. But some of them, I'm interested in them, so I can add myself as a contributor for that? Or
yes, of course. That's exactly the scare factor.
Yeah, exactly.
One second. Yeah, the scare factor that we have is that, oh, this is Intel. I have to be Intel to be contributor. That's not true. Yeah, if you go in and add yourself there, I will be happy to approve that. Probably I will not do something like that for myself by adding myself to the NXP stuff, because that's like a whole thing of, so many things are happening, which is good,
As I said, for some of these, we're working together on Sound Open.
I know, yeah. And there's another thing which we are not using. There's actually, in the maintainer file, there's a way to get notified, and you are not a contributor, you are a watcher, basically, yeah?
Yeah,
That's something probably we need to start doing more often, yeah?
Yeah, I think in this case, because I mean, you are a collaborator, right? There's a collaborator section in the maintainer file for those the DMA and DI sections. If you send a pull request for either of those, I would +1 it. So
do you
there you have
think
it.
that the community grows so much so it would make sense to follow the Linux kernel process where we split on multiple repos? Like for a Linux kernel, each maintainer has its own repo, and the community is smaller, so you can follow it better.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're there yet to be doing that, but yeah. I mean,
the first problem with that is non-linear Git history anymore. So
Yeah,
I know that many people will not like that, because then you have to use Git merge for the model that Linux uses. So no more Git rebase on top, everything. So that's something that we'd lose, because the simplicity of a linear Git history is definitely a plus. I mean, obviously it's not always possible, but when it is, it's a definite plus.
But the current growth rate, I think.
I agree. No, I'm not saying you. I'm not saying
what
it's not a good
problem
idea.
are you trying to solve? I'm not sure exactly what is the problem.
There are too much notifications, and we cannot follow exactly what we want. So, like, we want to follow only the, I don't know, DMA community or audio community. And when you look at the GitHub, there are.
But I mean, then figure out. I mean, the notification. If this is a global GitHub problem. I mean, if you are using notification to follow what's going on, I agree with you, right?
Yeah.
I would say we need to figure out how to improve this without splitting the tree. I'm not sure exactly how you are going to solve this by splitting the tree and having multiple branches and multiple repos. Yeah.
But stop. Don't start with how to solve it.
Yeah.
Find the problem, and then let's have a discussion outside of it.
Yeah.
Because I do think there's different workflows you can engage into to be able to follow things. And I'm exploring those myself.
You could use labels, for example. I'm sure the pull requests and issues you're interested in share a label. So, I'm not sure whether GitHub allows you to filter by label, but otherwise, you could write your own script. I'm not saying it's ideal, but.
Let's figure it out. There's another one.
So, I'm I'm one of these unknowns that none of you have ever heard from or heard of before. But I've been working with Zephyr for like 5 years now. I was at Meta working on their undercover projects on custom silicon. So I've been doing SoC level, board level, even some Arch level work in the tree, but you would never see any of the work that we're doing. And now I've left and gone to another 30-person company, and I'm working with a silicon vendor who's had a third party trying to do their Zephyr integration. They're doing it all closed, and they're doing it all wrong, and they will not listen to me. And so now I basically, for our company, I'm doing our own port of this new SoC from this other silicon vendor that's not represented here. And, I've been thinking this week that I need to contribute this, in small stages, right? Here's a basic SoC with a serial port. Here's adding things on because of all the things I've heard in these conversations. But, I'm that dark horse who's going to come in and say, hey, I've got all kinds of great stuff to commit. But how do you recommend people like me come in? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people like me who are working in very closed systems who at some point will be in a position where, hey, now I can contribute and want to contribute. So
I can answer that. The answer is consistency. I mean, you send a pull request there, you wait, you ping people, but the thing is that you need to help the maintainer. You need to create a pull request very easy to be reviewed, and you get some of them going, and once people start to know you, you build trust, and at that point it would get easier.
Contributing something.
Yeah, I'd say start small with something that's missing.
Right.
And start small with something that's missing, and then keep building on it. Don't go thump everything at
Oh,
once.
no. Yeah,
and
that's
just,
what I say.
Just
I would,
start small and incremental, and I think build trust over time. That
But
seems
you
to work
already
best.
you already said your answer yourself. I mean, SOC with a UART, that's exactly how you do it. I mean, one SOC with one driver, a board, obviously, that you can compile that. You're on the right track. Just
Okay.
send a pull request.
Documentation.
Yeah, sure.
Documentation. Okay, guys, this is like really. Erwan, you wanted to say something or? Yeah.
Yes, just one point we were mentioning about notification, how to be notified and so on. There is a feature in GitHub where you can disable mails, and you have a kind of you can use a kind of dashboard that is available, and you can configure and filter on whatever on labels that you're interested in. And this is what I'm using on the day-to-day basis, and it's quite helpful actually. So it avoids to get a ton of mails that you won't read anyway. So this is an interesting feature in GitHub that can be useful.
There's actually also a lot of extra headers in the mails from GitHub. So if you can do custom filtering on your mail client or mail server, you can filter it into categories and monitor it much better that way.
I think we definitely, I mean, probably not the FAQ, but we need like best known methods, like tips and tricks type of section, yeah, where all of this input, everybody has their dot files that do something with, or tools or whatever. That's something we definitely need. Like this is like, I think it's becoming essential, yeah.
We already have that in several places, like in Beyond the Getting Started guide, there's a couple of tricks. In I know that in West, for example, we explain to people how to redirect the URL so they can use HTTPS, so that it uses HTTPS instead or SSH instead of HTTPS and so on. So we should put that all together, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. That's where we need to be careful. Probably it doesn't have to be in the documentation as we have it. We need to figure out probably a better way, like a wiki or something like that. I don't know, yeah, but something that is...
Not sure. Why? I mean, why split it up?
Because it's not documentation, really.
Well,
yeah. Anyways, we can figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
I want like something to be like live, like okay, you have an idea, you just put it. You don't have to go submit a pull request and then it gets stuck for 10 days just because you have a tip. Or I remember submitting a tip and somebody did, oh, that works only for you. You have to set up this, you have to set up that. That's actually like West update when you do bisection, for example. I wanted to automate that. I don't want, because every time you do a bisection, the next commit doesn't work because of some stupid module that has changed, right? And this is like very useful. And I tried to get it in, but somebody said, didn't like it, and I had to abandon the whole idea, yeah, because I didn't have time for it. But anyways, beside the point, we need probably to figure out how to put this information, make it available, and encourage that to push it in without having to go through the review process, right? Anyways, so we are out of time. You want to say something?
I just wanted to say thank you very much to all the maintainers who have actually managed to keep the velocity going over this last year. We've seen a tremendous amount of growth, and it's very much thank you to all of your hard work. Much appreciated.
And each maintainer who attended today will get another coin, yeah, from.
Yes. If you're a maintainer and you don't have your coin, go see Brett. Or Benjamin has them too. Yep. So do I.
Oh, yeah, I'll bring these back.
May would like everyone, all the maintainers, to come up to the front so she can get a picture of you. Please.
Take that back if you're all done.
We are. Thank you.